How are we supposed to juggle everything? This is Billy Goldfeder answering some questions from you as part of our What's Your Problem series hosted by FireRescue1.com and Lexipol. Here's today's question. I've been on the job for 20 years. Just 20? I've been on the job for 20 years and it's nothing like when it first started. I would agree with that. We're called out to everything now. I get it, it's part of the job, but the call volume is ramped up and now the overtime feels endless. When am I supposed to find time to do anything other than sleep on my days off? My mental health and my family life are struggling. This is a big issue and it's a real problem. I don't run into anybody anywhere that wants more overtime these days, and that's a whole lot different than when I started and even just 10 years ago. It seems that what firefighters want is time. We want time off, and that's a big deal, and that's a problem because kind of picture this conveyor belt. So we're trying to find enough new recruits. We don't seem to have enough new recruits. We put them through the process. Some of them get thrown out of the process. All in the meantime, there are the troops that are working for the organization at this point, having to fill up, and fill all these gaps, and it's a big deal. I'm of the opinion one of the biggest problems we have, and in your question you talk about going to everything now, and I'm a big proponent, always have been. Somebody calls us, we're going to go solve your problem. It's just what people do. When they want no nonsense and they want the problem solved, they call the fire department, okay? Whether it's really terrible or if grandma has a hole in her screen door. I mean, I've been on those calls too. But to me, it's a failure in our social care system and our health care system. I think really what it comes down to, and yes, fires are up and we know that's a stat, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. I think you're talking about the emergency medical calls or the medical calls that are not always emergencies, right? We all understand what that is. And I think every firefighter, no matter who you are, you buy into the concept of Brunacini's Mrs. Smith, meaning the general public, we're going to take care of them. But as we see social services failing, as we see healthcare systems failing. I mean, everybody I know, the healthcare is changing. It takes more to get a claim. It costs more money, blah, blah, blah. Okay, as a segment of our population is no longer cared for or served either by their family, and remember, families used to live down the block, now they live across the country, right? The loss of a loved one, so grandma's now living by herself. The lack of money to pay this hospital bill. Even if you have insurance, something may cost you thousands of dollars. And when somebody's making 10 or 15 bucks an hour, or somebody's living off government welfare, or if somebody's living off a retirement or Social Security, it won't cover it. So what happens when you take that whole thing? The bottom line is we're going to call the fire department. No matter what, we're going to call the fire department. So what do we do with that constant patient? And if you look at the numbers, you're seeing the repeated customers, right? The repeated patient. Well, they have no family nearby. They don't know who else to call. They've already been taken to the hospital 3 times this week. Hospital says you're fine. They send them home. And we just become part of that whole equation, back and forth and back and forth. So what needs to happen, in my opinion, right, is we need to look at social services. Now, the problem is, there's a segment of our population that want to defund social services because these people, quote unquote, should be standing on their own 2 feet. Well, there's some that should and some that shouldn't. We shouldn't mix them all into one barrel. So when you say your mental health is being impacted, I get it. 3 o'clock in the morning to go to Mrs. Smith's house for the 5th time this week is a problem. And it shouldn't be your problem. However, it is, because you have to respond. It really falls into the leadership of your fire department, meeting with the leadership of your hospitals, meeting with the leadership of your local government, and bringing in federal or state representatives to identify the problem. Now, I'm making it much simpler than it is because it's a huge issue. If you belong to a labor organization, this needs to be part of the discussion. We need to hire more people. We need to change the types of calls we go on. We need to do something because we're losing people. We're losing interest in this job. And I'm going to address that as one of the issues that we're facing. I mean, I got some stats here I want to share with you. So Fire Rescue One did some stats from what they called the What Firefighters Want survey. 94% of the respondents said their fire departments experienced staffing challenges in the last 3 years. I don't know anybody who hasn't. And the volunteer service, that's a whole nother issue. That's in real trouble as well. 52% said their department does not have a strong recruitment plan in place. Well, again, we've done webinars, there's articles in all the magazines, there's a lot of ideas for recruitment, but the big thing is you got to have an interest in doing it, and you got to make it where your organization is a place where people want to go, where they create that buzz, right? 87% said the scope of the job, and here we go, has increased since they started working in the fire service. That's a fact, and I hopefully address some of that. What we're being called on, and again, I'm all for, look, I had a grandma, I had a grandpa, I had all that stuff, right? So if grandma and grandpa need help, I want them taken care of when they have an emergency. But if not, there's the family responsibility, there's a social responsibility. The fire department cannot be expected to go to Mrs. Smith's house 5 times in a week. Not that we don't want to help Mrs. Smith. Most firefighters I know are glad to take care of her. But we're missing other runs. We're taking that unit out of service. It's an inappropriate use for that resource over and over and over. First time, check it out, but then there should be a process in what we do with that individual so they get the best care possible while not tying up necessary resources for that choking baby or that auto accident, the ones that are genuinely emergencies, right? 46% of the respondents are considering leaving their current fire department. Well, I spoke to a captain recently in a neighboring department, and when he and I were chatting, he says if another department is offering 20 or 25% more pay, and it's essentially the same job, don't I have an obligation to my family to go there? That was a pretty hard-hitting statement. Yes, you do. Your family comes first. You take care of your family. But what we're seeing is people are just jumping from one department to the next based upon who's paying what, whose benefits have changed. But again, why wouldn't you look at that? So an old-time fire chief I know would say, well, where's their loyalty to the organization? Loyalty in the 50s, 60s, and even 70s is not what loyalty is in the 2020s. It's different. Whether we like it or not, it's different. People are into the job, but not the way perhaps the chief or the leadership or the commissioners may see. And we have to accept the fact that if we're not going to change to make this organization a better place to be, and better is very subjective, because what's better for the 50 or 60-year-old or 40 or 50-year-old is not necessarily better for the 20 or 30-year-old, right? And lastly, 42% are considering leaving the fire service altogether due to their stress. A big deal. Internally, what is the organization doing about that stress? Are we acknowledging the fact that these people need off? Working 36 hours straight in a firehouse that's doing a run every hour is a recipe for disaster. It's a big, big problem, and there's a whole lot of them out there. And leaving the fire service altogether, I was talking with our editor here at Fire Rescue One just before we started this recording, and think about it in a very simple way. If you're employed as a firefighter, you make $80,000 a year. Let's just take that. You're experiencing these situations like we just talked about, and you get a call and somebody says, you can drive a truck 5 days a week, you're home on weekends, you're home at nights, I'm going to pay you the same thing, give you the same benefits. What are you going to do? So in my discussion with Janelle, I said those who are into the job are not going to do that. But those who are just there for employment, and it doesn't mean they're bad firefighters, it's just they're not necessarily ate up with it, right? They're going to consider that. This is a big deal. It's a big problem. And it's something that I know our labor leadership at the national level, at the IFF, is very aware of. Leadership at the IFC, the NVFC is very aware of the volunteer situation. So some of the best minds in our business are working on it, but until those in our leadership role in our local government start to understand that we are going to have to make some changes, I don't know what's going to happen. But I wish you the best. If you are having some stress issues, talk to your peer group, talk to your counselors, shoot us an email and we can refer you to some good folks. I never want to ever leave anybody out there alone when you're dealing with this. So I hope that's been some help to you. Visit firerescue1.com. Send me your questions, send me your issues. If I can help you, I'm always going to do that. Thank you so much.